Out of the blocks, she was dead last. Not a little behind. Last. The slowest reaction time in the entire field. Coming off the curve, the Olympic champion was already pulling away from her. And if you had stopped the race right there and asked anyone in that stadium who was going to win, not one hand goes up for her. Then, in the final 50 meters, something happened that has only happened twice before in the entire recorded history of this event. By the time the clock stopped, a 25-year-old sprinter from a tiny Caribbean island had just run herself into a group of exactly 2 other human beings who have ever moved that fast over 200 meters. Stick around, because this race, the reactions, the numbers, and what it means for the rest of the season, is one you need to see for yourself. Before we get into it, if you're into track and field breakdowns like this one, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we cover every major meet, every record chase, and every rivalry all season long. Now let's get into what happened in Monaco. Friday night, July 10th, 2026. Stade Louis II in Monaco. The Hercules meeting, one of the crown jewels of the Diamond League calendar, and on paper, the single best race on the entire schedule was the women's 200 meters. 3 names. 3 completely different stories. And all 3 of them walked onto that track believing they were the fastest woman in the world right now. Let's set the scene, because you need to understand what was actually on the line here before that gun even went off. In lane 7, Gabby Thomas, the reigning Olympic 200-meter champion from Paris 2024. Thomas hadn't run a single Diamond League race in 2 years. 2 full years. Injuries had wiped out entire seasons for her, kept her out of the sport's biggest stages, and left a lot of people wondering if the version of her that dominated Paris was still in there. She'd also missed the World Championships in Tokyo the year before entirely. In lane 5, Adaejah Hodge, just 20 years old. Her path to this race was not a smooth one. Hodge served a 17-month suspension for a banned substance when she was still a teenager, the kind of situation that ends careers before they even get going. She didn't let it end hers. 1 month before Monaco, she ran 21.68 at the NCAA Championships in Eugene, a time that made her the fastest woman in the world in 2026. She walked into Monaco as the world leader, and she had every reason to think she'd walk out still holding that title. And in lane 6, Julien Alfred, the reigning Olympic 100-meter champion, the first Olympic medal of any color in St. Lucia's history. But in the 200, she was still chasing something. Back at the Paris Olympics, it was Thomas who beat her in the 200-meter final. Alfred took silver. Thomas took gold. So when these two lined up together again in Monaco, this wasn't just another Friday night race. This was personal. 3 storylines, 1 field, and 1 question. Who is actually the fastest woman in the world over 200 meters right now? The gun goes off, and immediately something looks wrong for Alfred. Her reaction time is the slowest in the entire field, not competitively slow, noticeably slow. As the runners come off the curve into the home straight, Thomas is right there, moving exactly like the sprinter who won Olympic gold 2 years earlier. If you had frozen this race at the 150-meter mark and asked the crowd to pick a winner, almost every single hand in that stadium points at Thomas. But a 200-meter race isn't decided at 150 meters. It's decided at the line. And that's exactly where this one flipped completely upside down. In the final 50 meters, Alfred turned into a different runner entirely. The gap that looked impossible to close with 100 meters to go started disappearing. Thomas couldn't hold her off. Hodge, closing hard from the outside lane, couldn't catch her either. Alfred blew past both of them down the home straight, and by the time she hit the line, it wasn't close. That single number did several things at once. It was a personal best by 2 full tenths of a second. Alfred's previous best sat at 21.71. It set a new national record for St. Lucia, and it instantly made her the new world leader in the 200 meters for 2026, snatching that title away from Hodge just weeks after she'd earned it in Eugene. But here's the part that actually matters beyond one race result. That 21.51 makes Julien Alfred the 3rd fastest woman in the entire recorded history of the 200 meters. Only 2 women have ever run faster. Florence Griffith Joyner ran the current world record, 21.34, back in 1988, a mark that has survived for nearly 4 decades without anyone getting particularly close. And Jamaica's Shericka Jackson, who ran 21.41, is the only other woman who has ever gone quicker than what Alfred just produced on the French Riviera. Think about the scale of that for a second. Every woman who has ever lined up for a 200-meter final at every Olympic Games and every World Championships in the history of the sport, Alfred just ran faster than every single one of them except two. She didn't even realize it right away. Crossing the line, she wasn't sure exactly what the clock was going to read. It was only when she turned and looked up at the board that it hit her. "I didn't realize how fast it was until I crossed the line," Alfred said afterward. "I looked at the clock and saw my time, and that's why I was screaming like at the Olympics." She also made a point of brushing off her slow start entirely. "It's not about the reaction time. It's about how you finish. I don't care about my reaction time. I was first. That's all that matters." Behind her, the race for the minor medals was its own story. Hodge did not fade quietly after losing the world lead she'd held for barely a few weeks. She fought back hard in that closing stretch and managed to edge past Thomas for second place, crossing in 21.76. For a 20-year-old still rebuilding a career interrupted by a lengthy suspension, running 21.76 against this kind of field, against two Olympic champions, is a massive result in its own right. "It's just about getting experience, so I am very happy to be against the best in the world," Hodge said afterward, adding that she's already looking to take the world lead back. Thomas rounded out the podium in 21.84, finishing third in her first Diamond League race in 2 years. It wasn't the win she wanted, but running that time against this field, in her first big race back from a 2-year absence, is proof that the sprinter who won in Paris hasn't gone anywhere. Now let's talk about what this actually means for the rest of the season. Because Julien Alfred is not just a 200-meter specialist trying to catch up to the best. She's already the reigning Olympic 100-meter champion. She is one of the fastest women on the planet across both sprint distances, and Monaco just made the case that she might be the single best pure sprinter in the world right now, full stop. Winning Olympic gold in the 100 is one kind of statement. Running the third fastest 200 meters in history is a completely different kind of statement. Doing both puts her in a category almost no sprinter in the history of the sport ever reaches. And Alfred's 200 wasn't even the only historic moment of the night. Kenya's Emmanuel Wanyonyi broke a men's 1,000-meter world record that had stood for almost 27 years, stopping the clock at 2 minutes and 11.83 seconds. Agnes Jebet-Njedik moved to third on the all-time list in the women's 3,000 meters with a world-leading 8 minutes and 8.95 seconds. Botswana's Colin Kebenetshipi broke the Diamond League 400-meter record for the second time this season. Multiple other athletes across the meeting hit personal bests and meeting records. It was, by almost every account, one of the deepest, fastest single sessions the sport has seen in years, and Alfred's 200 was still the headline. So here's where this leaves the 2026 season. Julien Alfred reacted slowly off the blocks. She was behind the reigning Olympic 200-meter champion coming off the curve, in a race that was supposed to be tight from start to finish. And then, in the final 50 meters, she found a gear that almost no sprinter in history ever finds, ran down both of her rivals, and crossed the line in 21.51 seconds, the fastest 200 meters run by anyone on the planet this year, and a time that places her name alongside just 2 other women in the complete history of the event. She didn't just win a race in Monaco. She took the world lead away from Adaejah Hodge. She beat the woman who denied her Olympic gold in Paris. And she moved herself into the top 3 of all time with a single run on what started out looking like just another Diamond League Friday. To really understand how rare what Alfred just did is, it helps to look back at the history of this event and the 2 names still ahead of her. Florence Griffith-Joyner, known worldwide as FloJo, set the current world record of 21.34 seconds at the 1988 Seoul Olympics. That same year, she also set the still-standing 100-meter world record of 10.49. Her 200-meter mark from 1988 has now survived for close to 38 years, through multiple generations of sprinters, through massive advances in training science, nutrition, footwear, and track surface technology, and through some of the greatest sprinters the sport has ever produced. Nobody has come within 0.2 of a second of it since. Shericka Jackson, the Jamaican sprinter, is the only woman in history who has run faster than Alfred's Monaco time. Jackson ran 21.41 seconds at the 2023 World Championships in Budapest, a run that made her the second fastest woman ever over the distance and cemented her as one of the dominant sprinters of her generation, alongside training partner and countrywoman Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce and rival Shericka's own long list of global 100m and 200m medals. Before Alfred's run in Monaco, the all-time top of this list had been remarkably stable. For decades, it was essentially a two-woman club at the very top. Griffith Joyner's mark from 1988, untouched, and then a wide gap down to the rest of the field. Jackson's 21.41 in 2023 was the first time in decades that anyone had gotten seriously close to that number. Alfred's 21.51 now makes it a genuine three-woman club at the top of the sport's history books, all within about 0.2 of a second of one another, despite being separated by close to 4 decades. It's also worth looking at where Alfred herself came from. She burst onto the global stage by winning St. Lucia's first-ever Olympic medal of any color, taking 100-meter gold at the Paris 2024 Games. That 200-meter final in Paris, though, went to Gabby Thomas, with Alfred settling for silver, the exact result she flipped on its head in Monaco 2 years later. Between Paris and Monaco, Alfred also had to withdraw from the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo after the 100 meters due to injury, meaning the track world never actually got to see a fully healthy head-to-head between her, Thomas, and the rest of the world's top sprinters during that entire championship season. Monaco was effectively the first time in years that the sport's best 200-meter runners, all healthy, all in form, were finally on the same start line at the same time. Gabby Thomas's own resume includes that 2024 Olympic 200-meter gold, run in a Games where she also anchored the U.S. women's 4x100 and 4x400 relay teams to gold medals, making her one of the most decorated American sprinters of that Olympic cycle. Her 2-year absence from Diamond League competition heading into Monaco was almost entirely injury-related, and her third-place finish in 21.84, a time that would have been a highly competitive result in most other 200-meter fields this season, shows that the ability that won her Olympic gold hasn't disappeared, even if the results haven't matched it lately. And then there's Adaejah Hodge, whose story adds another layer to why this particular race carried so much weight. Serving a 17-month doping suspension as a teenager is the kind of setback that has ended countless promising careers in track and field before they ever really started. Hodge used the time to keep training, came back, and by 2026 had established herself as the world under-20 record holder in the 200 meters and, for a few weeks that summer, the fastest woman in the world at any age. Finishing second in Monaco, ahead of an Olympic champion, at just 20 years old, is being read by many in the sport as confirmation that her rebuilt career is not a fluke. Put all of that together, and Monaco wasn't just a fast race. It was the first time in years that 3 of the most talented 200-meter runners on the planet, an Olympic champion coming back from a long absence, a 20-year-old rebuilding from suspension, and a double Olympic medalist chasing history, were all healthy and racing each other at the same time. And the woman who came out on top didn't just win. She ran herself into a conversation that, before that Friday night, only had 2 names in it.